Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Well, I'm back at the same topic again that we talk about so often on here because it is so very important for us to stay reminded of it. And I'm talking about the invasion at predominantly the southern border, but it's happening everywhere. I mean, it's not just happening there. That's where the big bulk of it's coming from. There was some more video yesterday getting shared around. Some of you probably saw it. A bunch of them on trains. You see it right here. There's just a big old train and they're all piled on it. And it's headed to the U.S. border. This is becoming a very common thing. I can remember, really, it didn't seem that long ago when, a migrant caravan or a train like this or something was kind of surprising, and it would kind of be all over the news and stuff. And well, now it's not, because it's happening on a daily, regular basis. Just because myself or the news or anyone else isn't talking about what's going on at the border all the time, I assure you that the problem is persistent all the time. This is becoming an issue that we can't just ignore anymore. I mean, we are absolutely being invaded. And this idea that, well, as much as that's awful, at least I don't live around the border. I don't live in one of these big sanctuary cities. That's not enough anymore, folks. It's coming at us faster than you think. I get reports almost daily from individuals talking to me about what they're seeing in their area. And we're not talking areas all the time of the obvious places, Chicago, New York, San Francisco, different towns in Texas. We're talking about middle America, just places that you would not think would be on your radar of migrants, illegals being dumped off. And I hear often of stories of, a couple of buses, big white buses pulled up in our town today, and they just got dropped off and buses took off. Or I get reports of, people that, work in businesses, and they'll say this big old line of what appears to be illegals, not speaking any English, comes into our store to buy something, or comes into the bank to cash a government check, or whatever it is. I'm hearing this more and more, and we have to understand that with the numbers that are coming across the border, they will eventually kind of spread out and filter out into a lot of the places that you live. This one reason this is going to happen is because these big cities are tired of it. They've been dropping them off in the big cities, and by the thousands, by the tens of thousands. And even though you'd think these big cities can handle it, whether they can or cannot, they don't want to. They don't want these numbers. And so there's this outcry from the big cities to stop dropping them off in our areas. And so I'm pretty sure we're going to see more and more of them just being dropped off all over the place. And even the ones that aren't being dropped off, they're just being released, and they make their way wherever. And we're seeing this over and over again. I hear reports all the time from little small towns saying that, to their knowledge, they've, never had, a Hispanic population, or a very small Hispanic population, very few people that don't speak English. And then all of a sudden, there'll be, people from south of the border, people from Africa that speak, don't speak English. They just show up and they're congregating in their cities. This is going to keep happening. A lot of times, a lot of churches will house them. They'll hang out around churches. They're given information. Okay, they're not just randomly crossing the border on their own without any assistance. They are given assistance, whether it be our government or other NGOs, non-government organizations, to help them, to advise them where to go, how to get there. They're giving them GPS coordinates, phones, money, identification cards, all sorts of paperwork, so that it makes it easier for them to get around and do business. They're buying homes. They're renting homes. They're being told that, or banks are being told that they can't not give them a home loan just because they're an illegal. I mean, they're here criminally. and they're not allowed to, you know, not approve them for a loan or something like that. This is becoming a huge issue, folks. And I know you know this. This is not new to you, but what is your plan for when this starts really picking up? You know, when we're talking 5 to 10 million a year coming across the border, and this has been happening for a few years now, and it's going to at least continue to happen through this year, I would say, and probably into the future. We're watching watching our country getting taken over. It's this population replacement. Americans aren't having enough children. Americans aren't willing to go get jobs as much as they should. And we're seeing the population being replaced by people that do. There was a report just yesterday of something like 23 million immigrants. I don't know if they're illegal or not. They're just saying, it's hard to tell anymore. They don't say illegal, they just say immigrants. 23 million immigrants will be eligible to vote in upcoming elections across the United States. A lot of these states and cities are pushing for laws allowing them to come and vote, or at least changing the laws to where you don't have to prove anything. So, you know, it doesn't matter if you're illegal or not or what the law says. You just show up and you have this ID that's been given to you. Well, let them vote. This is also part of the plan, folks, to get enough people that will vote the way, well, the government tells them to vote. What are you going to do when they show up in your neighborhood? What are you going to do when they show up in your part of the country? You know, what are you going to do when they start flooding into your little tiny communities? There's been reports of land being, you know, government land, some stuff like federal BLM land or national forest lands, things like that, being turned into potential, you know, refugee areas, concentration camps. I mean, that's not what they're calling them, of course, but you know, areas for them to stay. There was a news article last week in California that this is being done in a very rural part of California. There was federal land, and they're dropping them off there. And the locals were very upset. There's been rumors of that in other parts of the country. They did it in New York City at Central Park, dropping them off there, but there's been reports and rumors of this potentially happening in other parts of the country where there's just, you know, federal land, and they take that federal land and they use it to house illegals, or they start building some type of, you know, complex or something to put them on. They're talking about a lot of these little tiny homes to put them in. Of course, there's going to be universal basic income that they're going to be getting, and free health care and free education and all kinds of stuff that they're just going to get. And it's not going to stop. And folks, you need to be ready for this. This is something that you need to be thinking about. If you have some type of small mag, crew, tribe, community, whatever, you need to be talking about that. If you live in rural parts of the country where it could be very devastating quickly, you know, think about if you live in a small little community, it wouldn't take very many to overwhelm the system, overwhelm the medical healthcare system, overwhelm the food supply. You know, you may have one little grocery store in your town, and, you know, 100 people or 200 people show up. It could actually overwhelm the system pretty quickly because it's a small community already. We need to be thinking about this and having a plan for this. You should be reaching out to people in your area, you know. Reach out to the farmers and the little small shop owners and stuff, folks that you know are probably going to be fairly conservative anyways, and reach out to them and say, you know, all this illegal problem, what are we going to do if they just start showing up here? You know, talk to your city councilman or your county commissioners. What's the plan? What's the plan if they just start showing up here? Because so far from what I can tell, a lot of the evidence shows that they're not notifying these local community leaders or anything. They're just, you know, I've seen reports that they just kind of show up and drop them off. And a lot of times these local community leaders have no idea what's going on. They just wake up one morning and find a few hundred, you know, illegals sitting in the parking lot somewhere, and they have to figure out what to do with them, how to house them, how to take care of them. And then, of course, there's also the crime that comes with it, and all of the other problems. This is an issue, folks. We need to get prepared for that. You need to be aware of it and start actively, proactively working on a plan on how to handle this. I'm not advocating violence or anything like that, but I would certainly start having conversations with your neighbors and people around you that you know would probably be open to these, at least these kinds of conversations. Talk to city council members and other members of government around you and say, hey, you know, what's the plan if they just show up here? Go to city council meetings. You'll probably find more people sympathetic to what you're talking about than you think, because right now, statistically, even Democrats are very much opposed to all of the illegals that's flooding into this country. So this isn't an issue that you can just kind of wait until it gets bad. It's already bad. It's already there. Let's not wait until it's a complete epidemic to where there's not really anything that can be done. I don't have the solutions, but you need to at least be thinking about it and talking about it with others around you of what you can do to protect yourself, what you can do to, I mean, if nothing else, you may have to form some type of barricade and say they're not coming in here. They're not coming here. You're not going to do it. Because it is becoming a nationwide problem. It is not a regional problem in Texas or New York or California or any place like that. It is happening everywhere, and it's going to continue to happen because of the numbers, the sheer numbers that are pouring across the border. We have to start getting ready for this, folks. This is not going away anytime too soon. You need to be getting your houses in order. I also want to mention to you that the Black Friday sales are still ongoing and have been extended at My Patriot Supply. There's a link down in the description below. They are running some pretty good sales, buying a whole month's worth of food for like $160, $170. There's some really good deals on there. So if you're interested, click on that link below. It certainly helps out the channel, and it helps out our community and what we're doing here locally. Folks, you need to be getting your houses in order and preparing yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.